Hey everybody, Dan Shinder here on Drum Talk TV live from Globe, Arizona. Woo! 100 miles east of Phoenix. That's a big woo! Up in the mountains where it's a lot cooler. Woo! Where are you all tuning in from? We have Tobias Ralph as our guest today. He's tuning in from New York City, just like the hot sauce commercial. New York City! And Tobias is at the Collective School of Music in New York City, where he not only attended and studied, but he now teaches, and he's also a Berklee College of Music grad. So all of this, on top of being a drummer, means he's a brainiac. So we'll get into that. But also, one of the things that I discovered about Tobias that I did not know after we became friends online is I just stumbled on this amazing video of Tobias playing with Adrian Belew, of my favorite lineup of King Crimson. No offense to all the other lineups, but I just love that lineup from Three of a Perfect Pair, that album. First of all, Tobias, welcome. Thank you for taking time. And
it's a pleasure to be here. So
thank you. It's an honor to have you. Can we talk first about working with Adrian Belew and that whole scene?
Of course, absolutely.
Great.
My pleasure.
Amazing musician, amazing body of work inside King Crimson and beyond King Crimson. How did you get the gig, if you don't mind expounding on that? And what's it like working with Adrian? He seems like such a down-to-earth guy.
Oh, he's a wonderful guy. Absolutely. You know, how he is on stage is how he is in person. You know, very fun, loving, you know, charismatic, and you know, always eager to be a great ear to listen to you, but you know, also the first one to want to pop a joke and just, you know, try to, you know, make everybody laugh. And you know, so he's one of those artists where what you see on stage is how he is in real life. You know,
I think the way
you know,
he performs Elephant Talk live probably explains it all.
Absolutely. I mean, that's you know, he's constantly having fun.
Yeah.
And
that's got to be contagious, right?
Oh, it is. It's contagious. I mean, you know, he kind of, you know, you could get up on stage and sort of be having the worst night, and you know, he'll just sort of get in your space and go, "Come on, let's go," you know, and kind of look at you and smile at you and crack a laugh, and all of a sudden you have to let your guard down, but at the same time he's playing such incredible stuff that you have no choice but to sort of jump in the fire. You know, right. His gig was never, oh, you know, I'm just going to try and phone it in.
Right.
You know, it was like, hey, you gotta get in there and go for it, and he wants that. You know, he's worked with some of the most amazing artists and some of the most amazing drummers himself, and he's a great drummer himself as well.
Right.
So, yeah.
On that Three of a Perfect Pair tour, I have a VHS of it. That's how old it is. But I saw it at the Greek Theater and had no idea at that time that he was a drummer. When he got on the drums and played with Bill Bruford, that was just so cool, you know.
Yeah.
And when you consider, like you said, who he's worked with, I mean, that lineup alone with Tony Levin on the stick and bass, Billy on drums, and then to work with Robert Fripp. I mean, is there anyone besides maybe Frank Zappa that could be any more intimidating to work with? Just because of the regimen and the perfection that's expected and everything, you know?
Well, yeah, sure. I you know, and I don't, you know, I've never talked to Adrian about that, and but I think the thing with Adrian is that no matter who he's playing with or played with, whether it's Zappa or Fripp or, you know, David Bowie or anybody, when they've brought him in or he's come in, they've hired him for him.
Right.
You know, they've hired him for, you know, Frank Zappa knew that Adrian was already this incredible guitar player, you know, and you know, Adrian always brings Adrian to the party, you know, because he was, you know, he was a guitar player, you know, raised on Jimi Hendrix and the Beatles and those kind of things, and that's ever apparent in his playing.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also developed this whole incredible other style, which I think has influenced so many people.
Yeah, very unique style.
So I think like in that lineup of King Crimson, what made it so great was the difference between them. Robert, yes, had these very structured, odd grouping types of things over the bar line, and Adrian did all that, but Adrian brought this wild sense of it, and also brought what I feel is sort of like the melodic sense to those tunes. And,
that's a great way to put it.
That's why, like, when Discipline came out, everybody was like, said, "Oh my God, this is amazing," because you had Bill Bruford, playing a drum set that consisted of rototoms and Simmons
and octobans
and not a traditional hi-hat.
Right.
Like used a Simmons hi-hat. Tony was playing the stick, and Robert is playing these incredible lines, and Adrian is in there doing this incredible sonic stuff, but singing incredible, beautiful melodies that you could sing right back.
Yeah.
And it immediately like appealed to the progressive, the pop. It was one of those things where it had everything.
Yeah.
And it was different. It was completely different.
Yeah, the songs that come to mind when you talk about the melding of the different musicianship and their unique styles, and then Adrian's voice on top of all that, I think two examples of that epitomizes what you're talking about is Frame by Frame and Monte Kudasai. Though they're so melodic, and in a way they're kind of so out there with the syncopation and all that, but at the same time, they are kind of like pop tunes in a way.
Of course. I mean, that was always, I think, how what was one of the, I should say, like, of course, his guitar playing was amazing, but how Adrian was able to sort of weave his voice over these complicated parts and come up with an amazing melody that you could sing back. And,
right.
I mean, everybody can, frame by frame, da, da, da. Like they have it, and it's, I think that's one of his biggest incredible things is sort of how he writes, and, the stuff that is quote unquote like sort of odd meters
and stuff. Yeah.
Some of the times you don't even realize it because he's woven it all together.
Yeah. It's his melodies and all of that are like the glue for all that syncopation and everything to make it not as weird as it's probably intended to be.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So how did you get hooked up with him? How did that process go?
It was an amazing process. In the sort of early 2000s, I was working with this German pop star, Nena.
Yeah, I remember Nena.
99 Luftballons.
Yeah.
Right? So at that point, the gig actually belonged to Van Romain, who's an awesome drummer.
Yeah.
So amazing drummer, but he was off working with Enrique Iglesias.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, they had brought in Marco Miniman, who was incredible,
right,
to fill in. And so subsequently, while Marco was playing with Nena, he and I ended up playing at one of the Montreal drum festivals together. And it was sort of my first big drum festival, and I want to say that was maybe 2002. And so there I was with Marco Miniman and Thomas Lang, and I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I doing here? Like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm trying to keep up with these guys, forget it, So Marco and I became good friends. And then it turned out that while Marco was touring with Nena, he had some other conflicts going on with other touring dates. And the bass player in Nena's band was also a very dear friend of mine, and he ended up recommending me to Nena. And then Marco and I met up again because I had to go watch a couple of gigs of him doing the gig.
Right.
So we became really good friends. And then I worked with Nana for a couple of years, and until Van came back. And then I was actually out on the road on tour with Miss Lauryn Hill in South America, and I got a call from Adrian, and you're sitting there in your hotel and you're like, and you're like, hi, this is Adrian Belew, and you're like, oh my God, it's Adrian Belew, but like, oh my God, I'm in South America and I'm gonna run. I got this huge phone bill that's gonna come. I'm like, oh well, whatever. Okay, it's Adrian Belew,
Yeah.
So there was Adrian, calling me saying, hey, listen, there's a couple of dates that Marco can't do because he's got some drum clinic stuff. So would you be able to come in and fill in for him on these 2 dates in England? And I was like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So then, Adrian sent me a bunch of stuff, and a bunch of live recordings, that were amazing. That consisted of not only Marco, but the other great drummer, Eric Slick.
Oh,
Julie's brother. And they were tearing it up on this live double album. So I had all these albums with me. He sent the CDs, and and so I went to the computer, and back when the computers had disk drives,
Right.
and I got everything onto my iPod, and then I had to go to China with this other R&B artist, Thomas Donker, and on the flight over there, to China, I spent the whole time charting everything out because there was a whole bunch of solo material of Adrian's that was amazing that I had to learn as well. So I sat there like charting everything out, making sure that I knew every hit. I mean, of course, the King Crimson stuff I knew, but there were live versions of that. That were a little bit different arrangements. So I learned all that, and then I got back from China, and then flew down to Nashville where he lives, and they picked me up at the airport, and I went and rehearsed with them for 2 days, and that was it. And then subsequently, right after that, or in August, they had this sort of the Three of the Perfect Pair camp upstate. So all of a sudden there I was, thrust in with Pat Mastelotto and Tony Levin, and there I am sitting with Pat, because now all of a sudden we're going to be doing this double trio thing. So all of a sudden, I'm having to learn, thrack and baboom with Pat, and I'm like, oh my God, here's Pat, another huge influence, and so we play baboom in front of these people. We get through it, and then he kind of puts his arm around me. He's like, let's go up to the practice room, you and me, and just work on this alone. You know what I mean? And that was amazing,
Yeah,
and then,
I bet. Wow.
And then right before that whole tour started, I went to England with Adrian and did these 2 gigs. The first gig I played, I was awful. Like I just, I played terribly, and they had this sort of old Premier set that was sort of like, the bass drum was kind of teetering, and the legs
It was a typical bar backline kit, right?
Totally bar backline kit, but in this beautiful opera house.
Oh, wow.
And
it's like, what's this kit doing here, right?
Yeah, what's this kit doing here? And then, so we did that gig, and I was like, yeah, that was not so good,
What did Adrian say? Did he give you feedback?
Adrian is always, he's always so positive. He always sort of gives people the option to go, to kind of improve and get better. So he was just like, hey, don't worry, let's go, out to the bar. Okay, I know you don't drink. Here, you can drink the cranberry juice, but let's go out. Kind of chilled me out. And then the next gig we did it actually in London proper, and that was more of a club.
Mm-hmm.
and they had a nice sonar set there and all that. So, and that was a much better gig, you know.
Great.
And so then I finished that gig, and Adrian was like, "That's great. That was great," you know. So, you know, it's he sort of is very cool in allowing people to sort of figure out what their mistakes are.
Yeah.
You know, and how to improve it. And he'll say little things here and there, and like, okay, be a little less busy here, but otherwise he wants you to go for it. You know?
Let's give everyone a taste of your playing. I'm going to play some of the clip of you performing with Adrian. So turn it up, folks. Check this out, and then we'll be back with more with Tobias. Here, check this out. Here we go.
Okay. Can you hear me, Dan?
Yeah. And everyone's can hear the video now too. So it's just playing. I'll be right back with you.
Okay. Yep.
Our connection's sticky.
Need me to move to a better place there, Dan?
No, just hang on. You're good. They're watching the video. They can hear us, so hold on.
Oh, gotcha.
It's a crazy one-handed roll with the bass drums. With the bass drum pedals. This is awesome.
Okay. Oh, great. Well, there's, you know, so many people have played over that, you know.
Yeah. So there's a question that came up because we used that clip as the promo clip a half hour before the interview. And okay. Caroline Dugan-Williams says, I noticed the promo clip that Tobias had amazing control over his rolls and had incredible speed across the kit. What is his advice for rudiment exercises and applying these across the kit? I love that question because a lot of drummers sometimes don't make the connection between all the rudimentary stuff and how to apply it around the kit instead of just playing on the snare drum like they practice with on a pad. So what's your advice for that on spreading the love of rudiments?
Yeah. Well, I think there are several things that like, and I'll do a little promotion here that like,
Sure.
so when I'm doing with these guys with Alex Cohen and John Longstreth and Lou Santiago and this sort of Murder Hands boot camp thing that we started here at the collective.
And by the way, Murder Hands boot camp sounds like training for assassins or something like that.
I know, and that's, you can blame John Longstreth for that one, you know. But
it's a great
the
name.
idea was that, you know, we kind of sort of go. We put it together as just sort of like a community to kind of get drummers together, and we go through these exercises. And you know, the idea is that we walk out of there with our hands sort of, you know, kind of like, okay, you know, like can't do anything with them for the rest of the evening. You know, it's just like.
Right.
But one of the things we stress there is sort of right hand, left hand exchange, meaning doing, you know, everything with your right hand and with your left hand. So a lot of times, like before, if I'm working on a pad, like I'll work on one hand being constant and sort of another hand filling in. This is sort of something that like Mike Mangini talks a lot about, sort of keeping one limb constant while another hand is filling in. So often I will do these sort of exercises where I go from groups of 8s to 7s to 6s to 5s to 4s to 3s to 2s to 1s, you know, doing one hand sort of doing 16th notes and then another bar of 32nd notes filling in, you know. So I feel it's very important to kind of balance, make sure that each limb is as strong as it can be. That's why I'm like an advocate, even though I'm a horrible double bass drum player, like I'm an advocate for working on it, because it's something about balance that helps you. You know, when you sit on the set, you want to be balanced, and you want to have, you know, you want to have each limb be as strong as it can be. I mean, why wouldn't you? You know what I mean?
Right.
For me, I mean, and of course, there's some incredible single foot players, so I'm not knocking that. I just, you know, when you're practicing, I think it's worthwhile to work on all 4 limbs. You know,
sure.
And it balances you at the set, and also, you know, sort of helps with your time. You know, helps you facilitate getting around the drum set and being able to start with whichever hand. Now, when I first started playing, I started playing as a lefty. So some of the fills I do, I start with my left hand or with my right hand. So it's and it, you know, it can depend on what is going on in the music or what type of fill I'm doing. But I do think it's an important thing. First of all, when working on fills or technique, that you do it from, you know, an area of a groove. So it's not just here I am working on the fill.
Right.
You know, I try and put it in a sense of time and try and figure out how to phrase it. Like, oh, am I going to phrase it in 16th note triplets? Am I going to phrase it in 32nd notes or just regular 16ths? You know, can I phrase it in a shuffle setting? Can I phrase it in a straight 8th note setting? You know, what are the different combinations? And that's sort of where the fun begins, because then I can sort of take like a basic 6-note sticking and, you know, divide it up around the set, but it gives it a totally different flavor if I sort of take a 16th note triplet phrase, but play it in 32nd notes, you know. Right. So I sort of get this kind of 3-against-4 polyrhythm, and all of a sudden it sounds like something totally different. So,
yeah.
You know, that's one of the things that I try and think about is taking certain basic stickings, paradiddles, inverted paradiddles, and how to divide them up in different ways. You know, like if I have a rudiment that has 2 lefts or 2 rights, I can divide those 2 lefts up between 2 different sound sources, or I'll substitute one of the left hands for a left foot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, and that's sort of some of the stuff that Steve Gadd does. You know, and I think in that clip that you showed the people, there's one point where I sort of go into a groove against the bass part that Julie's playing.
Yeah.
You know, and that's sort of a thing where I'm sort of dealing with kind of a hi-hat substitution. where I'm playing some of the notes with my left foot in order to kind of fill in some of the 16th note triplets that are going on, you know, and I'm thinking like, you know, that groove was a groove that I saw Steve Smith do back in 1989 at one of the Zildjian days.
Oh, wow.
You know, so I sort of took what he did and tried to apply, like, okay, here's the sticking. Now I'm going to substitute some of my things that would be going on the hi-hat in my hands, but I'm going to substitute my left foot for some of those things, you know, and try and see if I can start taking the notes in there and start putting them on toms, you know, and then, you know, oh, can I change the note rate? You know, if I'm going dun, 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 and I'm going dun, 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 you know, it's sort of like you know, I like in all these solos I try and think about tension and release. You know? And space, because you know, what I've learned from doing the couple of drum clinics that I've done is that even when you're playing through a room full of drummers, after a while, if you obliterate them with notes and how fast you can play, everyone's just going to sort of like sit there and with like droopy eyes and go, you know, so you have to give them space. Yeah. You know, it was one of the things why, again, Steve Gadd was so great. Yeah. Is so great. Why Dennis Chambers is so great. You know, here's a beautiful groove and everybody's bopping their heads, and all of a sudden he does something where he flies around the set and everyone's like, what is that? And then all of a sudden he's back into the groove. In the groove, you know? And, exactly. You know, so that's, you know, that's sort of one of the things that, you know, and there's a couple of points in that solo that you showed the people where I could definitely look at it and I go, oh yeah, that's where I sort of lost my train of thought. You know, because I sort of went on to automatic pilot, like what I knew I could do or what I knew people would react to, you know. It's sort of like, and that's sort of where the ego kind of can get dangerous, is if you just go, okay, well, yeah, I know this is something I can do, and this is, you know, I mean, and yes, there's a certain amount of like, okay, when you go out there and you perform, you're never going to do something entirely that you feel uncomfortable with. You know, you're always going to go for stuff that's like, okay, this is surefire. Yeah. You know, it's going to work. But yeah, you know, it's like I can look at that and go, oh yeah, there I go. I'm repeating that and doing the same thing over and over again because I'm trying to think about where I'm going with it, you know? Yeah. So probably in those kind of places, like that's a good place where I just need to take a stop, you know, and play something really simple, something that will bring people in, you know? So I think, I know I kind of meandered off the top, but I think when you're playing these fills, there's got to be a meaning to them. And I think where where people react to them most is sort of coming out of a strong time sense, you know, and they can feel what's going on, where the time is, and they can feel sort of the cross rhythms and everything, and also dynamics, you know, right? Dynamics and sort of being able to start with either hand, you know, because that's sort of also going to open up your creative possibilities, you know. Of absolutely. Like, well, you know, here's a basic sticking, but, you know, if I reverse this paradiddle and I divide up the two left hands and the two right hands between two different sound sources, you know, if I play, you know, a basic paradiddle in that it's phrased in 16th notes, but instead I phrase it in 16th note triplets, you know, and all of a sudden we have this, you know, this kind of, for time is here, you know, you know, it kind of creates the illusion that it's something more fancy or complicated than it actually is. Exactly.
You know? And it's important for everyone watching, especially if you're a drummer, that this applies to any genre of music. It's not just for soloing, it's not just progressive rock, it's really any genre, anything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Talk more about the boot camp.
Okay, so the boot camp is it's something that was started with my good friend Alex Cohen, awesome drummer.
Mm-hmm.
John Longstreth, who's one of the premier blast death metal drummers,
Yeah.
unbelievable. And Lou Santiago, who's an amazing fusion Latin drummer, was one of the winners of the modern drummer contest. I can't remember what year, but he won it and was one of the first drummers I saw actually play the Cascara rhythm with his.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, incredible player, and Alex is, he's just, a freak of nature, like double.
You hear that, Alex?
Yeah, ambidextrous to the, just, like an idea is just like nonstop.
Yeah.
So, he and I started hanging out because we sort of were both kind of going through some rough patches in our lives. And he was one of those guys who said, yeah, okay, come on. You got all your stuff going on in your drama. Let's come to the pad. Let's go to the pad. And we just started kind of working on some exercises, and it became this thing. And then we started hanging out with John Longstreth, who's, one of these guys who's just got blazing singles, and super strong. And just so, and, he was keen about learning sort of different, I guess, rhythm stuff, but he also brought a lot of knowledge of what he did to sort of build up these incredible, blast beat chops, which I wasn't exposed to, so the three of us sort of kind of came up with all these different exercises to do, and then Lou joined in and also brought sort of the element of traditional grip and we would do it at the collective, sort of in the lobby here at the collective. There's like a bunch of places where people can sit. And it was sort of like when I was at Berklee, where there was like drummer's row and everyone had their pad and they were out there, working on their Vinny licks and all that. So that was sort of what we started doing here. So we would meet every night, and, it was sort of like the sound was so bombastic of us just like going, and the kids started joining in.
Oh, wow.
And we had just come on in, so we had everybody from sort of the more advanced students to beginner students, and we would sort of slow it down, show what we were doing. And so everybody could kind of join in, and it'd be kind of became this community.
Yeah.
And then, the collectives got interested. Tony Maggiolino, and he was like, okay, we should do a clinic, with this, and we, so that's what happened. And then he, the collective shot a video of us, and I guess it got a lot of views, I guess people liked it because it was just sort of, it was like a bunch of drummers just getting down to sort of the bare basics, and there we were with a metronome on the table that sounded like a heart monitor, and sort of drilling these exercises that were sort of a combination of a lot of the great exercises that Joe Morello did, and some of these awesome unison single endurance exercises that John brought. And then Alex sort of has these mind bender exercises, which is like, okay, 3 paradiddles and then a paradiddle diddle, and then it's going to flip, and then but this, and it's in 15, okay, so so there was sort of the math element there too, and so so now we're gonna do like a little workshop here, which is free for everybody, and sort of give handouts, and I mean, and it's the whole thing of Murder Hands Boot Camp. It sounds like, oh my God, we're these aficionados. I mean, like, I know a zillion students here who have far better hands than I do, but it's just, I think it was just sort of the community, and that we're here, and that we're, when we get on, we do these exercises, we do them. No one's allowed to stop. If you have to stop, you go and start doing sort of the free stroke or just something simpler, but
Right.
the idea is to keep going, and I look at it as like, because I'm a runner, so I sort of look at it as, training, so we have these moments of endurance and speed, and that's sort of, what we're doing with it.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's really a neat element that it's 4 completely different types of drummers,
We're
coming
all
together
different,
for one thing.
I mean, yeah, and it's good for me because, I've gotten to meet a lot of sort of these, high end, blast death metal drummers, who I may not have met, through John and Alex, and it's nice because there's sort of a community about it, and so people want to come in and sit in and be like, yeah, come sit in, here's the exercise and here's what we're doing, okay, you don't feel comfortable doing it, let's do it slower, so,
yeah.
And it's good because it's a healthy competitive type of thing,
Yeah.
and,
the camaraderie is there.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, I'm going to be the best of you. I mean, I know, like, I'm ever going to have, singles like John does, I mean, that's sort of, his technique comes from, playing 2 hours of blast beats every night.
Yeah.
Going, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. So, and same with Alex, he just has a way of being able to see numbers line that's different from anybody else. Like, okay, well, this is 7, this is a 5, this is 7, I can play them together, or I'm going to play them separately, So.
Yeah, and what's neat about this whole concept is I think it's also a microcosm of the example that if musicians really expand their appreciation for different styles of music, doesn't mean you have to like it, but if you are open to it, you will learn more. So for instance, I'm not a death metal guy, I'm not a blast beat guy, but I love watching drummers play like that. It's fascinating to me, just the physicality of it. Like you said, it's like, whoa, how do they do that? And there's always something you can borrow from somebody who's doing something that might not be in the genre that you're fond of or that you even play or have never really been exposed to. And sometimes what I've learned is as we learn about our music heroes and drumming heroes, and you go deep into their catalog of their experiences, often they were into music and playing stuff that you didn't know they played and you might not like, but yet you love that drummer. And that's why it's important to understand it. It's really all connected, and they're all just different tools in the toolbox that we can pick up from each other and apply the same or differently,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for me, it's just a whole learning lesson, I mean, I'm here, I'm like the grandfather to these guys, I'm 47, and it's like, but there I am. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go for it. I'm gonna try and work on this. I see the benefit of it. I may not get called for whatever.
Yeah. Now I feel like a grandfather to you.
Come on.
I'm 56.
I look older than you. You look great.
Thanks. I'm 56. I don't know how that freaking happened, but it did.
It happens. It goes fast. It goes really fast.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about music education before we go. You're a graduate of Berklee College of Music.
Actually, that's a correction. I'm not a graduate. I didn't graduate.
Okay. So
I was there for a year, like a New York minute,
Okay, cool.
It was great. It was great.
How intense was it? How intense was that year? And what was the biggest thing you got out of it? I know that's hard to narrow down, but throw a dart.
It definitely was very intense. I want to say that, like, I realized, when I got there, I was also trying to take marimba with Victor Mendoza.
Wow.
I spent about a month doing that, and I just was, I was like, no, I can't do this. I said, this is harder than learning piano. And that was my mentality was like, well, hey, it's a percussion instrument, so I can figure it out.
How hard could it be?
Yeah, exactly. And it's melodic, and it's so it was. I did that, and that was sort of at that point I sort of felt like I was on data overload,
Yeah.
and I was I went into an arranging class, and that was tough, because of it was great, but I had I really had to sort of start thinking outside of the drummer box.
Yeah.
Like, okay, how to write in bass clef, how to write in treble clef, and what, and okay, so now, my teacher wants me to go sort of do a mock arrangement,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh yeah, I'm like, oh, I'll do an arrangement. I want to figure out an arrangement of Black Cow by Steely Dan. So that was pretty horrific, and I got like maybe about 4 or 8 bars in, of trying to sort of dissect on a little keyboard in my dorm room, like the chords, and it's like, oh my God.
What strikes me about that concept of taking an arrangement class is that while of course you learn certain fundamentals and theory and all that, it also sounds so subjective. Like, how do you get graded on that if it's arrangements are subjective, These people may love it, these people may hate it, and the ones in the middle just kind of don't care. And that, to me, that's so, it's like walking a tightrope in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, it was tough. And I definitely was sort of hanging on for dear life. I mean, I think probably the best thing that I got was, being able to sort of go there and play with other musicians and play the music at that point that I wanted to, because I got to Berklee and I was a huge fusion head.
Oh,
so there was tons of players, who wanted to play that. So there we were, and at Berklee they would have these shows in the cafeteria that you could do, and so it was like there it was all of a sudden playing, my favorite Mahavishnu song, or my favorite Bill Bruford song, and getting to do, and that was absolutely one of the best things, and I got in there and I tried to get into some of the ensembles, and at that point I was not a great reader, so it's like I got all 5s, so they kind of put me in a basic jazz band, but it was good, I was playing, and I guess I want to. The thing that really got me, that was the best thing about being in Berklee, was sort of being able to play with other musicians and being able to play the music that I wanted to. And it was funny because I had a roommate who was the complete opposite of me. He was all into, Metallica and Jane's Addiction and all that. And I was like, oh, I couldn't stand listening to that. But by the end of that year, I loved it.
There you go. Yeah.
I was like, by the end of the year, I came out of there being like, being the biggest Jane's Addiction fan, the biggest Alice in Chains fan, the biggest Slayer fan, and not the biggest, but just like, I got it, I get it, and
that's cool.
And also at Berklee, like, there was a great drum community. I had a lot of dear friends. And, and we would do these things where, like, on the weekends, we would just sit in some guy's dorm room with a VCR and watch Vinnie Colaiuta all day.
Yeah.
And sit there with a pad and all that, and we were like,
doing it.
It was drum porn,
Yeah,
so,
totally.
So we're sitting there and we're just, we're practicing and eating junk food and, and watching Vinnie Colaiuta, it's like
living the life.
Like, no, move out of the way. Come on, what's that lick he did? Boom,
Yeah. A real college education, not architecture, not engineering, not med school, none of that BS. We're talking drumming, putting Vinnie on the whole day and just immersing. That's a college education right there.
Exactly. I mean, I sort of wish now that I had been a little more astute, but.
Well, you made up for it. You got a gig with Adrian Belew.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at that time, that was it. So
before we go, I want to show the latecomers a little bit more of that clip.
Okay.
So here we go. You won't see it or hear it, but the audience will. If I click the right button, here we go. Check this out, folks. This is Tobias Ralph performing live with Adrian Belew. Awesome drum solo. Check this out. Here it comes. As soon as the screen refreshes. Oh, no. There it is. Here we go. Check this. Jeez, it's just so freaking fun to watch. It's fun music. Everyone's having fun on stage. It's awesome. And folks, if you go to the Drum Talk TV page, we'll be done in a moment. When we're done, go to the Drum Talk TV Facebook page and look at the post right before this interview started. And it's the entire video of Tobias doing that performance with Adrian and Julia. It's just fantastic stuff. And I want to mention that our pre-show chat, I told Tobias that I'd love to have him and Alex Cohen on together in a space where they could be playing together and talk about playing and working with other drummers. It's a very healthy thing, and you're both just so fantastic together. So talk to Alex, and we'll arrange that. A couple things I want to mention. Thank you. A couple things I want to mention from the comments. I'm looking at the monitor here. Chris Gordon mentions from Chattanooga, Tennessee, checking in. He says, Tobias's one-hand clap exercises are a great, unique exercise. It helps keep the old hands loose. Can you demonstrate that real quick?
Oh, sure. Well, it's hilarious. I started doing this because I tried to figure out, I was trying to figure out ways to sort of warm up without drumsticks, but, you know, a way to like make a noise and sort of, JoJo sort of does this and I think Mike Mangini kind of does this sort of the bird thing. And so I started trying to do this thing where I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Well, mine doesn't make any noise. Oh, this one does.
Yeah. So the idea is that you're pushing, so you sort of pushing your wrist like this, and you're snapping your fingers. So it's sort of like, it's like you're kind of mimicking a little bit of the motion of how you would playing, but you're also kind of getting your fingers to.
That's fascinating. I'm gonna have to work on that. Wow.
And it's hard. I mean, like doing double strokes is really, really hard.
Wow, you just gotta wear a helmet when you do that. That's awesome.
I had put together like a little video of that, and I watch it now, and it's hilarious because you can tell like I had way too much caffeine, and I'm just like, okay, so this is what I do, But,
that's funny. Will you do me a favor and make us a video for Drum Talk TV fans explaining that?
Yeah, sure.
That'd be great. And here's another quick comment. So going back when you were talking about the old Premier kit that had the teetering bass drum at the Opera House in England and everything, Caroline Dugan-Williams says, I don't feel too bad now when I complain about playing on a bad house kit. So
we all do it. We have all had our moments.
All been there, yeah. Let's see what else. Okay, if there's anything I'm missing. Just some really good compliments. You'll have to go through some of these. I love the clinics that he did with a drummer named Marcus at the Collective back in the 90s.
Yeah, Marcus Farney actually was one of the gentleman who I met at Berklee College of Music, and he was one of these guys who knew, he had studied with Gary Chaffee, and he had all these incredible stickings and just incredible phrases. And he was one of those guys that I would record, like I would stick a tape recorder by his shed without him noticing, just like, and we're talking like a cassette recorder. And I was
Drum Spy,
and so he had all these great.
Wait, what's a cassette recorder?
Yeah, exactly. One of those.
Actually, I have here. I'm going to move I have a bunch of old relics. Let's see if we can see it up on the shelf.
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
Let's see. There's the reel-to-reel, and you can see the very end of a Walkman right there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right there, and I got like an old Polaroid camera up there, and so I do know what a cassette player is. I said, I'm 56.
So those, so I had I would record him and so
so funny.
He was a huge influence, and a lot of the stuff that I put up or videos that I put up in one way or another have been influenced by stuff that he showed me. He's sort of getting back into playing again. He's actually like a full-on triathlete now.
Then why don't you put those recordings on CD for him so he can learn from himself again?
Right, exactly.
And chart him out, and both of you sell it as a lesson plan.
Yeah, he showed me all that stuff. So he became one of my good friends.
That's great.
So we still keep in contact, and
nice.
And he called me up I want to say last week out of the blue, and he had a free ticket to see Steve Smith playing at the Iridium. So he and I went down and saw some, incredible drumming of Steve.
Yeah.
So
that's great. Tobias, we'll definitely have to do this again, and we'll definitely do it again with Alex as well. Folks,
absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining Tobias, myself, here on Drum Talk TV. Lots of more.
This is awesome. I'm
totally
honored.
Oh, thank you. Me too. I really appreciate you taking the time and breaking away from stuff and sharing your wisdom. I hope this was helpful for all of you. No, really. A lot of great information here, and that's what the interviews are all about, so we can all learn from each other unique experiences.